Let's talk about politics, bitches, which is one of my favorite things to do. I have never had a hobby that aggravates me and gives me vigor at the same time. The great red flood is upon us, and if you don't believe me, let's just take a look at the polls. So this is from Real Clear Politics, 2022 generic congressional votes. Republicans are leading in the polls by 3.4 points heading into the midterm elections. Now, 3.4 is an average calculated by Real Clear Politics, as you can see. And it looks like this is updated since I've looked at this. If we look at the polling data, some of the pollers have Republicans leading by 5 points, and a new one is having them lead by 8 points. Jesus. No, and this may not appear to be a large lead, but it is, and Democrats should be concerned. And according to Vox, let's bring them up here. When Democrats lead by 3 points in polls during presidential elections, Republicans still win. In modern elections, where one party prevails by just 2 points in the two-party popular vote, inversions are expected in more than 30% of elections. That number rises by to 40% in elections with a 1 percentage point margin. Republicans, moreover, are far more likely to benefit from an inversion than Democrats. In the modern period, the studies suggest Republicans should be expected to win 65% of presidential contests in which they narrowly lose the popular votes. This Republican advantage can shift elections where the Democrat was a fairly clear winner in the popular vote. A 3-point margin favoring the Democrats, the study concludes, is associated with a 16% inversion probability. In other words, Republicans will win nearly 1 in 6 presidential races where they lose the popular vote by 3 points. Jesus. So, if studies show that Republicans still win when Democrats lead in points, what does this mean when Republicans lead in the polls by a 3.4 point advantage over the Democrats? All we have to do is look at the primary elections that just took place to answer that question. Republicans have a massive turnout advantage in the 2022 primaries so far. Daily Wire writes, Republicans are already seeing a huge advantage in turnout during the 2022 primaries, according to one pollster. In Tuesday's primary election in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Kentucky, Idaho, and Oregon, Republicans made up 54.9% of the total votes cast, according to John Colvin, founder of the polling firm JMC Analytics. When factoring in the other 5 states that have already held primaries, Texas, Indiana, Ohio, Nebraska, and West Virginia, Republicans account for fully 60% of votes cast in the primaries so far. Jesus. In every state where I've been measuring turnout changes relative to previous midterms, I'm seeing a clear advantage on the Republican side, Colvin told the New York Post Wednesday. Colvin added that the data was not super representative since it was only from 10 states with early primaries, and there are still 174 days before the general election. Still, the data from these primaries suggests that states that are swing and are Republican are going to move far to the right, he said. Colvin also shared his data on Twitter Wednesday. According to the data, overall turnout in the 10 states that have already had primaries was up to 21% from 2018, which he noted was a high turnout year in itself. But a partisan breakdown showed a massive advantage for Republicans so far. Democratic turnout has totaled just under 5 million votes, while Republicans have cast nearly 7.5 million. In addition, Democrat turnout increased by just 3% over 2018, while Republican turnout increased by 38%. Jesus Christ. Wow. Wow. And here's a most recent tweet from John Colvin. And we're just going to focus on the number 3 here. national primary electorate for these 21 states went from 52% Dem to 55 Republican, a 14-point swing. Jesus, that's huge. Wow. That's insane. You know, Democrats are in a full panic mode, you know, and the reason I say that is because CNN, the most infamous of the liberal, media outlets, has said that the GOP will win big in midterm elections.
Topping our politics lead, a little more than 5 months remain before American voters head to the polls for the critical midterm elections. It is looking less and less likely that Democrats will be able to keep control of the House of Representatives, where Democrats currently only hold a 12-seat majority. CNN senior data reporter Harry Ensign joins us live. Harry, if you're a Republican running for re-election or trying to unseat a Democrat, things are looking pretty good, right?
I would say they're looking very good from a historical context. So basically, I took the best Republican positions on the generic congressional ballot at this point in midterm cycles since 1938. That generic ballot basically asks, would you vote for the generic Republican or generic Democrat in your district? And guess what? Since 1938, the Republican 2-point lead on the generic congressional ballot is the best position for Republicans at this point in any midterm cycle in over 80 years.
Wow.
It beats 2010 when Republicans were up a point. It beats 14, 2002, 1998, where Democrats led by a point. And in all of those 4 prior examples that make this list of the top 5, look at that. Who won a majority? It was the Republicans who won a majority. Now, of course, the election is not being held tomorrow, and we'll see. Sometimes history isn't always prologue. But my estimate for the 2023 House makeup, if the election were held today, which again it isn't, we still have 5 months from tomorrow, would be Republicans 236 seats to 241 seats, Democrats 194 to 199.
Wow.
That's based off of a formula of seat-to-seat race ratings from both the Cook Political Report and Inside Elections.
Wow.
That is a stomping, or that would be a stomping.
Yes, it
I guess.
would.
We'll see if it happens. A lot of the Democrats' problems, it seems, can be linked back to the president, right, who is severely underwater.
Yeah, midterm penalty, it's about where the president is. And essentially, okay, look at the president's approval rating at this point since World War II in midterms in which his party gains or loses less than 5 House seats, which is essentially what Democrats need to maintain control. In 1962, the president's approval rating, JFK's, was 71%. Bill Clinton in 1998, it was 63%. In the 2002 cycle, 72% for George W. Bush. Joe Biden's is just 41%. Why is his approval rating so low? Well, I think this slide will give you the answer. This is the net approval rating on the economy at this point in a presidency. Joe Biden's minus 26 points. That is the lowest, tied for the lowest for any president in the last 40-plus years.
Jesus.
So speaking of the economy, just how big of a drag is this economic situation shaping up to be for Democrats on the ballot this fall?
I think it's the big drag. Why is it the big drag? Because most important issue in your vote for Congress, what tops the list? Not surprisingly, with those gas prices as high and the inflation as high as it is, the economy at 48%, that beats gun violence at 17, abortion at 12, immigration, which Republicans had really wanted to run on, all the way down at 6%. And here I think is the big takeaway. Views on the economy are closer to, look at this, Republican Party 51%, Democratic Party 31%. Republicans
look
lead
at that, dude.
on the issue that's most important. No wonder they have a historic advantage on the generic congressional ballot, Jake.
Harry Ensign, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Holy shit. An apocalyptic outcome for Democrats heading into the midterms. Jesus. Wow. Can you imagine a GOP-controlled House, which it looks like that's what's going to happen? Can you imagine a GOP-controlled Senate? Can you imagine both? I'm not sure that'll happen, but time will tell.